Let's use standard deviation to discuss whether or not data is an outlier. So data is considered significantly high or significantly low if it's more than 2 standard deviations away from the average or from the center of the data. So if we're going to talk about significantly high or significantly low, we have to figure out what is the standard deviation of this data. Let's say that we collect the systolic blood pressure measured in millimeters of mercury of 11 of our fellow classmates. Let's find the standard deviation. So reminder, the standard deviation is the sum of the x values. So in fact, in this case, that data set's called B. So maybe let's choose B values. So each blood pressure value minus the average blood pressure will square those differences. We will then add them up. And then we'll take that sum, we'll divide by the degrees of freedom n minus 1. So that right there is our variance. In order to turn it into standard deviation, we need to square root that. So let's save the square root for the very end. In fact, I won't run through the standard deviation equation in great detail. I'll just write it out and get us going. So this division by n minus 1, I'll write that out in front. So now what's going inside these brackets will just be the sum. So our first value, the first B value is 120 minus the average. The average, let's remind ourselves of what that is. It's the sum of all of the blood pressures divided by the number of blood pressures that we have. So 120 plus 124 plus, right? You add up all of these until you get to 162. And then you divide that sum by the 11 people. You find that you have an average blood pressure of 128.82. So our average is 128.82. You'll take that difference, you'll square it, we'll add it to the next. So the next value is 124 minus the average of 128.82. You'll take that difference and square it. And you'll do this for all of them. So we'll end up at 162 minus the average of 128.82 squared. I don't like that. There we go. Okay, so I won't review the algebra, but when the smoke clears, you have a standard deviation of 22.61 millimeters mercury. Okay, so let's use that standard deviation to talk about whether or not any students have significantly high or significantly low blood pressure. So if I start at my average and I move to the right by 2 standard deviations, that's going to give me the point that is 2 standard deviations above my average. So my average was 128.82, and I will add 2 standard deviations, which we found to be 22.61. That is going to be 128.82 plus 45.23, which gives us 174.05 millimeters of mercury. So if any student has a blood pressure 175.05 or greater, they're 2 standard deviations away from the average. Therefore, they're significantly high. So let's see. If we go through our data set, how many values are greater than 174.05? I think we just have that 178. So because 178 is higher than 174.05, we can say that 178 millimeters of mercury is significantly high compared to this sample. Let's see if any students have significantly low blood pressure. So we'll start at our average and we'll move to the left by 2 standard deviations. So 2 standard deviations under the average is 83.59. So let's see if any students have a significantly low pulse rate, significantly low systolic blood pressure. So from our data set, it doesn't look like there's a student below 83. It seems like the lowest is 95 right there. So there are no significantly low blood pressures in our sample.